So hello guys, we are from BCG. But wait a second, what is BCG actually doing here? I mean, isn't BCG this traditional, kind of boring old consulting companies and consultants out there? Consulting the big banks, consulting all the big companies out there. What are we doing at a hackathon? Well, things are changing. And I mean, this is us, Bernhard, partner at BCG since 17 years. And
Eleonora, very nice to meet you all, guys.
And then things are changing. I mean, 17 years BCG. I had, back in the days, 15 years back, I had my 10 suits. I was wearing ties all the day, flying around to my banks. Now, I mean, look at us. I'm wearing not, leather shoes anymore, but yellow shoes. We are at hackathons over the weekend. Halls like this here in Cambridge are not occupied by the traditional bankers or others. They're occupied by you guys, the V-chainers of the future. And we as BCG are also in this game. The narrative is changing, and in order to get mass adoption of the products that you are building, you need someone who's bridging, so to say, the old world with the new world. Because the old world are a little bit afraid of kind of us, of my yellow shoes even. That's why we guys of BCG, together with VChain, are helping you to get into the traditional economy with your amazing apps that you're building. But let's look a little bit closer to this traditional economy, what is happening there. When I talk to my, normal big banks or clients, the initial reaction over the last years was actually, well, guys, are you really doing something in blockchain or crypto? Really? So this was the first step. They were like kind of laughing at us or the industry and so on. Later on, and this is, by the way, the hype cycle of the truth hype cycle of Arthur Schopenhauer, 200 years back. And this really holds true for what is happening now, because later on, people are like, yeah, I've heard of blockchain, I've heard of digital assets, but no, we don't do that. We don't do that, nothing for us. And then the next step of this truth hype cycle is, of course we are doing this. What else do you think? I mean, it reminds me a little bit of our mobile phones, right? I mean, when you go to a bank 5 years ago, hey, in 5 years I'm paying directly with my mobile phone. The banks were like, no, you need my card, right? Nowadays, I mean, then certainly you had an upgrade on the iPhone or whatever device you have, and boom, it works, right? And this will be the same here. A couple of years from now, it will be, out there everywhere. Your apps, VChain, all the other, industry players. And it will be, let's say, self-evident. Of course we're using blockchain. What else do you think? Let's look, and this speech, by the way, will also help you when some people ask you, hey, what are you doing here? Is this really something for the future? This speech will give you some numbers, some figures that you can use then to, your family, your friends that are not kind of believers in this space. It really shows that there's a new narrative, and then those things are really changing. So there's a good slide that is basically comparing the internet times and how the internet, evolved over time. You see this here in green, starting somewhere from 1992 up to 2006, and then overlaid, of course, with a certain time lag, the adoption of wallets and of Web3. And you see, the slope is kind of similar. Yes, there was a little dip here, 2002, as we see it here, but it's more or less the same slope. A couple of other numbers. So we have already seen the 16 trillions of tokenized assets that we foresee for 2030. 50 billions are in Web3 at the moment, and also 400 million wallets are out there. And of course, because of bull markets, it's increasing. This is my favorite killer slides that I love to show to all my traditional banks. It basically shows here on the right-hand side, we have some, we have Barclays, we have Lloyds, HSBC, yeah? And then here on the left-hand side, we have some favorite, Web3 players from Ethereum, Coinbase, Binance, and so on. And you see basically, well, Barclays is somewhere here around Ripple in terms of market cap. And this is not only the market cap that you have because of the tokens, this is also the market cap, especially for other players here, Binance and the others, that are paid on the VC markets, on the PE markets. So valuation that are really paid. Nevertheless, and this is a funny slide, of course you cannot read everything here, but you'll find it on the internet certainly. Nevertheless, we always challenge as well the industry, hey guys, do you really need a blockchain for this problem? Or maybe just, it's a normal database and not a blockchain. So it's not everything should be on the blockchain. It's very useful for a lot of things, for decentralization, for decentralized ownerships, but not for everything. And this is kind of a decision tree, a funny one, whether we should go or an app or an idea should go on the blockchain. We've heard it already, so we are partnering with VeChain since 2022, and also in the near future we'll continue partnering with them for quite a long time. We wrote the white paper together, sustainability white paper, and as I said at the beginning, our job in the future, also for you as VeChainers and builders and developers and ventures of VeChain, our job is to help you to get into the big business, to get into the big companies with your ideas that you have, with your apps that you're building, because the big companies have the people, they help you with the mass adoption. And we are bridging the old world with the new world and bring you into, mass adoption with your app that you're building on VeChain. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernhard. Not easy to talk after you, so I will try to be as nice as you've been. Here, what we wanted to do with you is I promise you not to annoy you with why this is important, why sustainability should be on top of our agenda, on the focus of what we do, because you are really the generation that I think will save us. So not talking about that, I just want to share with you in the next 10 minutes, more or less, two data points that gives you the size of the opportunity you have to really help us solving the climate issue, and then a possible perspective that you might want to use while developing the solutions in these 2 days. So starting with the data, usually people think that the evil is with flights or with the sea ships from one corner to another of the globe. Actually, it's not. So if we look at the global emissions, really transport is responsible for a huge share. 20% of the global CO2 comes from transport, but it's actually not air flights. It's actually us, because if you look at the breakdown, overall, 15% of the global emissions comes from us just moving around. And this number here, that it's really huge. I mean, I was also surprised. I sensed that, but I didn't really grasp the magnitude of my own responsibility when I travel to work or for leisure and so on. Gave me the idea to show you one specific perspective. So of course, in these 2 days, you will be absolutely free to develop what you think is more relevant. But just look at this. If we think that we have this massive responsibility when we decide to move around, let's think about where we will be in the majority of the cases, in mega cities. So especially for people who was born and raised and who's living in Europe, the idea of mega city, I think it's not grasped entirely, but we have been this historically. So people is constantly moving towards the cities, leaving the countryside. This trend will only increase even further in the future. And as you can see, by 2050, we will have 80 mega cities, but the majority of the population will live. So it's there that we would produce the 15% of the global emissions. And you today have the chance to find the solutions to avoid this. So again, you can choose whatever perspective, angle, lenses you want, but this is just a sort of inspiration that I wanted to share with you. So let's look at how this mega city might look like. I will not go through all this information. Here, I just wanted to give you this perspective. These mega cities will look like what we call meta city. So it's a huge space where the physical, the virtual, and the economical dimension will cross and will merge, giving completely new shapes that will define the context where we will live. And just two numbers I would like you to keep in mind. These two, one at the bottom right side. So these mega cities will be so huge that will basically be an independent economical system. So they will hardly ever, trade outside their borders, and they will generate 5 trillion plus GDP by 2050. And if you think about that, yes, it's a huge number, but look at the average number of people who will live in those mega cities. So it's kind of double the Italian dimension, So we will have between 100 and 200 million people living in each of these 80 mega cities in the world. So again, that's why I'm bothering you with this perspective. Here we have a lot of things that we can do. We actually need you to develop the solutions. So huge spaces, an incredible amount of people, many needs, of course, to be satisfied, right? So we will need to provide shelter to people. We will need to set up solutions so that people can shop, that people can move, infrastructure to keep everything working together. We will need utilities to power everything that we would do and all the ancillary services that you might think of. And this, of course, will open up terrific opportunities for everyone who will be so smart to take them. So we will need digital and virtual access in these new dimensions. Remember that the meta cities will be different from the cities we have today. You will have the physical dimension, but a very, very overwhelming also virtual dimension. Everything that we will have, it will have to be convenient. It will need to provide connectivity. The solution will need to be affordable for everyone, efficient, sustainable, of course, the most important thing. And then another aspect that we see in the future meta city is the community. We foresee a future where the community dimension will grow up again. So it's a kind of going back into the history, because we will have new technology, we will have the digital and virtual dimension that will allow to recover the community dimension, even though we will live surrounded by 100 or 200 million people. And these are just a few of the opportunities that companies are starting together and that we might want to pursue in the future. So we will have modular homes. If you have to host 100 million people in a space, you need that space to be able to flex and adapt, following all the needs that we have. Think about yourselves. What do you need when you are 10 years old is different from when you are 20 years old, and so on. So the space will change as we will change ourselves. We will have efficient energy management systems. We already see how e-commerce is changing. The delivery system is changing with new technologies and solutions, with robotics embedding into these solutions. We will need virtual showrooms, co-working spaces. I mean, we also as BCG hardly ever are in the office. I mean, it's easier for us to just meet virtually on Zoom or Teams and so on. We will need smart grids to power all these massively virtual dimension of the meta cities. And we will also see something very interesting, urban farming. What I told you before, in these huge mega cities, we will hardly ever trade outside our borders. So it means that we need to find solutions to feed ourselves. And here comes the urban farming. And with all these people living so close, we will need to develop new solutions, of course, to handle the waste that we are going to generate. And last but not least, the focus of these days, the urban adapted vehicles. Imagine 200 people driving and moving in a city. We really need to find new solutions to allow that. And how this is changing, I mean, we always, historically, we have been having this kind of conversation constantly, right? as the population has been growing, we asked ourselves, how can we handle all the traffic generated by all these people in our cities? But so far, we only answered these new needs with building new roads. Okay, we have more people, we have more cars, let's have bigger roads. But this actually led us to one of the biggest sustainability issues that we are facing now. We just built tunnels so that we could drive even faster, just crossing the mountains and so on, and just added bus lanes as well. So what we have to do today, again, now we have to take a completely different level of magnitude. We need to change the way we think about this. And we will need to think about the smart city solutions that can mean smart traffic controls, so that we reduce the idle times of the cars just stopped at the traffic light. We will need car sharing solution, cars on demand, and self-driving cars to optimize the mobility. And so with this future in mind, our colleagues have been thinking about different solutions, of course. So different models that will also depend on where every single mega city of the future will start, of course. But let's say that in general, we have identified 6 different models for the cities of the future. Cities that are livable, that are resilient, so that they can quickly recover from floods, for example. In Italy, unfortunately, we are very used to floods, and we are not that resilient, I promise you. But these are the cities of the future. We will have digital cities, sustainable cities, innovation cities, where the innovation really is a driving force for everything that we are going to do. And my most favorite, if I can share my preference, is the 15-minute city. And this is a model that it's actually under trial in different cities across the globe, also in Europe. What does it mean? That again, depending on where the single cities are starting, so the history, the speed of development and so on, the different models might develop themselves in different way, and they can also combine. But just to give you one single possible overview, we will have urban sustainability. So in these mega cities, we will have green mobility, we will have green spaces, vertical farms that will allow us to clean up the air and at the same time, farm and sustain to get the food for sustaining the entire city. And we will have the low carbon ecosystem. Another very important aspect, keep it in mind, it's one of the topics that it's least spoken about, but we will have inclusive cities. In these cities, we will have spaces affordable for everyone. Everyone will have their own space. And it will be equitable when it comes to accessing all the services that will be provided in the cities. As I was saying before, the cities will also be resilient. Climate change is a fact. The weather is going to be harder and harder. So we will be more and more impacted in the future. But our cities will be designed so that we can recover quickly. And this 15 minutes neighborhood. So imagine that whatever you need, think about what you usually do in your typical week or month. Whatever service, whatever activity you do, in the future would be really at arm's length, because the farthest you will drive to get to that service, it will be 15 minutes only. And again, if you think about Cambridge, that doesn't sound that strange. I mean, this is a small space where to live in, but imagine it in a city hosting 100 or 200 million people. That's why it's my favorite. And then, of course, we will have digital services, so that the services will be close to us and will be safe thanks to the solutions to secure cybersecurity. And we will have increased outdoor spaces where people can just enjoy the community, can have fun with leisure activities and sports activities. And another very interesting aspect, then is the last one I would just pinpoint, is connecting suburban cities. So don't imagine that these mega cities will only be skyscrapers. On the contrary, thanks to the digital solutions, the virtual solutions, we will be able to connect the outskirts of these mega city centers, so that people will still be allowed to live in, let's say, less crowded environment where they can feel more the communities around them, but they will be incredibly connected, not like today. So enjoy, no pressure, but I really rely on what you're going to develop these days. So good luck and have fun.